Thank you very much, Monica. Good evening. My name is Jim Ruta, and I work with Peter Nelson at Nelson Insurance Advisors. We are delighted to be with mycatholicdoctor.com today. Peter's specialty is helping Catholics minimize tax and maximize their financial security and their community impact with a focus on building Catholic charities. That's why we're particularly excited today to be with you to show you some ideas about how you can help build mycatholicdoctor.com. Now, Peter, I wonder, just to get us started, if you might just give us a little bit of your background, if you would, just to get us going.
No, thank you so much, Jim. And thank you to Monica and Kathleen for helping set this up at My Catholic Doctor. So I've been in the insurance and financial services industry for 21 years. I actually grew up in the business. I am what they call a cradle Catholic. I'm love my faith, try to live my faith every single day. And this is why I love to do what I do, because this is more than just a career for me. It's more like a lifestyle. And if there's any way that I can help My Catholic Doctor with some of the unique strategies that we have to help them do even more amazing work than they already do, that's why I do this. That's why I think this industry that we have is just so wonderful.
Thank you, Peter. I thought maybe we'll just get right here to our presentation and see how this works. I take it we have that visible for everybody, Peter?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Terrific. Well, listen, let's get right down to it. And, one of the first things you often think about here is why people give. And, we can sort of run this. There's lots of ways and lots of ideas about this. Let me see if I can get something to work here for me. Of course I can. So here's a list. And let's talk about what we're really talking about here. Why people give, Peter.
Yeah, people give for various reasons. They could have a compassion for the cause. I mean, here we have My Catholic Doctor, that the story about just the growth factor and being really the only Catholic teledoc style service out there. I'm sure there's a lot of Catholics out there that really appreciate what My Catholic Doctor offers. Perpetuating their beliefs and their traditions. Once again, backing up a Catholic medical institution that actually has those Catholic values. We want to, as Catholics, we also want to deal with people that have that in organizations that have those same values.
Peter, as you're talking, I'm reminded that, it's one of those ways you can sort of put a stake in the ground and sort of stand up for what you believe in. And I think that's one of the real reasons people do contribute, is just that exact reason, to stand up for that, like perpetuate the belief.
Absolutely. Community recognition and business reasons. There are some people that want to give to be recognized, so that people recognize them in the community as someone that does like to give back. And some people, let's face it, they just want to be generous, and they also want to do it in an anonymous manner. And
yeah, Peter, I can just interrupt you if I could. That's exactly what happens. Some folks would rather get their glory someplace else than here on earth. Not that necessarily bad either way, but it's one of those things where, some people are just generous and want to contribute. I'm sorry to have interrupted you.
No. And another reason is just to set the example for the family and others to follow. I've tried to instill that, me and my wife, with our own son, that when you do well and when you're successful, you should give back. It's just the right thing to do. And once again, religious reasons, of course, faith and good works is something that, as Catholics, that we are taught, that comes right out of the Bible, right? And some other times, you might have someone that is single or widowed, and they might not have any suitable heirs. So that's actually why we're doing this right now, in a way, is that, My Catholic Doctor, what a wonderful avenue for a charitable cause. And last but not least, of course, there are current, and estate income tax deductions that are available by doing some of the strategies that we do.
Yeah, indeed. It's funny, all of these things, and there's different reasons, of course, for people to do these things. But it all kind of often it's a combination of things, I think, too. And I think we were talking about this earlier. We all have our reasons for doing this, but the real question people that are watching this would have to say is, which ones are yours? And there could be several, 2 or 3 different ones that kind of combine together to help you, to help you make that donation, to make that contribution to a charitable cause, like My Catholic Doctor. There's no question about that. Peter, how about this?
Yeah, in the end, there are really only 3 places your money can go, right? Government, charity, or your family. And if you really think about it, if you only had the option of 2 of them, which 2 would you choose? And if I would be a betting person, I would bet that most people would say charity and their family, right? So that's really what some of the strategies that we're going to talk about here in a second allow you to do. What is a way that you can actually maximize both the contributions that you leave to your family and also to the charities that you have consideration for at the same time?
Yeah. Peter, I think this is a really great little picture here, a little chart, because it really does hammer home the idea that there is an option to giving your money to, the government, to the IRS. There is an option to that. And it just takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of effort. I can tell you the work that I've done on both sides of the border, as you pointed out earlier, I do work a lot in Canada as well. And you realize that a lot of folks just don't know what their options are. And I think when you can put it down just like this, where in the end there's only 3 places your money can go, and you can choose through 2 of them, where would you put your money? And you're so right. People will choose their families, their charity, which is like their extended family in lots of ways, probably to the exclusion of government, regardless of the government and who it is or what it is at any particular time. That charitable stuff makes a real difference in the lives of the people that we work with. And why else do we do this but to try to make the world a better place? Well, we're here because there are some great strategies here on how life insurance can help in this entire process. We've got 4 really good strategies here, but just to get us started, let's talk a little bit about how life insurance can help. Peter?
Yeah. First of all, we like to say adopt a charity, and the MCD, by the way, stands for My Catholic Doctor, and really disinherit the tax man. Going back to what we just talked about, if you only had to pick 2 out of 3, government, family, or charity, which 2 are you going to pick there? And even when you can only make small donations, with some of the strategies that we have, we can actually take those small donations and leverage them and turn them into large donations.
Yeah, Peter, I just like to just go back to that first thing, because I love that language you've got there. Adopt a charity, and I think that's kind of what we really do. It becomes our pet charity. It's like our charity, our thing, and we adopt it. It becomes part of us. We become part of it. And regardless of your charity, whether it's your church or whether it's a Catholic organization around the church or whatever it might be, or elsewhere, that whole idea of adoption, of taking it on as something you do, it's almost like tithing through charity in that respect. And I think there's an awful lot to be said for that, just that idea. And then, as opposed to adopting the tax man, which a lot of us have done over the years, perhaps unwillingly, not wanted to, but it's what happens. And if we can maybe take a little bit of that at least, and adopt the charity, adopt a great cause like mycatholicdoctor.com, it really can change. I think it changes. Look, first of all those reasons that you give at the beginning are true. All those things that we talked about in terms of why people give compassion and their beliefs, and for perpetuating their beliefs and for their religious beliefs. These things really make a difference, aside from whatever financial remuneration or compensation there might be for these things. It seems to me that this adoption of this charity, adoption of any charity really is something that can really kind of puts it right by your heart, makes it different, and makes it something special for everyone. And then, of course, you were talking about the small donations into large ones. How does that work? How does that happen anyway?
Well, there's a couple different options, and we're actually going to get into those. But you know, I was going to mention it later, but I'll even just bring it up now. You know, even if we made for example, someone made a $5,000 donation, and what if we could instantly make that 5,000 look like $10,000, and the Catholic doctor could spend most or all that $5,000 while that donor was alive. And then the minute that donor was looking down from heaven, we'd actually replenish all that money that my Catholic doctor used while that donor was alive, so that my Catholic doctor could literally use that money all over again. And people say, my gosh, it almost sounds too good to be true. Why didn't I hear about this before?
Peter, I think a lot of people get lost with the idea of life insurance anyway. A lot of people are not fond of the concept, of course. We know that. No one likes to really have this discussion. But, it's not so much about what life insurance is. It's really more important about what life insurance can do for you. And this idea, this little magical idea where you can make a small donation and it can turn into a large one, is really something special. And again, as you pointed out, and you can still provide ongoing cash from My Catholic Doctor. And of course, they need that ongoing money to run operations, to make this thing happen. But of course, on the back end of that insurance contract also is this opportunity to provide a legacy, which will grow the organization and allow for long-term growth and long-term difference. What's this idea about tax deductions mean the government helps? What is that about?
Yeah, so the government, when we structure these strategies properly, the government is actually helping us in a way. They're encouraging this because they know of all the amazing stuff that these charities do. And the government, if they had to do it, it would not be cheap, right? If the government always does stuff that's more expensive. So the government actually gives a tax deduction when we properly structure these. So the donor can make that donation to, My Catholic Doctor, to fund some of these strategies that we have. And also the next part too, special plans can make for a charitable bonus. This is really something. And I remember the first conversation I had with Kathleen from My Catholic Doctor, talking about, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. For example, with the Catholic Order of Foresters and this fraternal legacy rider, this thing here is, I consider to be the most unique charitable giving strategy in the United States right now. And practically no one knows about it. And that's why we're doing this, to get the word out in a way.
Yeah, it's surprising. You often won't get this from your attorney. You don't get this from your tax accountant. You don't get this from other people. It surprises me how little of these great tools are really known and used on a regular basis. I'm reminded, I think as I recall, I think the Congress was going to tax life insurance proceeds going back to the late 1800s, 1899, I think. But it was turned down, you see, because of the great social and economic value of the product. And, so you say the government helps. They do. They're giving you part of your money back just for making the contribution. And I think there's so many ways that life insurance can help. And this just kind of sort of sets the stage for how it can work for you. Now, the first way that we can talk about, I think, is maybe a very simple one, a very easy one. And let's just talk about that. Peter, lead on here. Number one.
Yeah, this is definitely the simplest approach. This is where we use a life insurance policy to leave a legacy to the charity by making My Catholic Doctor your beneficiary. Now, we can make My Catholic Doctor the entire beneficiary of that policy, but what's also very neat is we can do we could do 80% My Catholic Doctor, 20% the family, 50-50, you name it. This is where we can get very flexible with something like this. And also what's nice to know, now there is a higher estate tax limit right now, but your estate does receive a tax deduction for the amount of life insurance you would leave to My Catholic Doctor. So there are estate planning strategies that we can build into this as well.
Yeah, indeed. And I think it's kind of an obvious thing, and you almost want to start with the obvious and not forgo or not forget the obvious. Just make mycatholicdoctor.com your beneficiary, and I'm sure there's a way we can make that happen quite easily. So whether you've got just a policy you've got, even you can change beneficiaries on existing contracts, and that is something that you can do that at some point could have a real impact on My Catholic Doctor. But of course, the older you are, the bigger the potential impact might be, and the sooner it could be. All of which, of course, is rather a dark discussion, but just true if you believe and you have compassion for the cause, that sort of thing. But there's more to it than this, of course, and there's another version of this, and another way of using this, Peter, to donate a life insurance policy to My Catholic Doctor and pay the premium. But I'm wondering, when you say donate, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so some people may have an old, whether it be, we're going to talk about this, an old term plan, but let's just talk about they might have an old cash value life insurance policy. Let's just use an example. Maybe it's $10,000 of cash value in that policy, and maybe they don't see as much of a need for it as what they once did, or maybe they have multiple policies. We could actually change the ownership of that policy to My Catholic Doctor, and that donor could actually receive potentially the get a tax deduction for what the cash value is of that policy. And then what's interesting is, let's just say to make maths very simple, let's say it's a $10,000 cash value and a $20,000 death benefit. My Catholic Doctor would have full access to that $10,000 while that donor was alive once again. And then heaven forbid, when that donor was looking down from heaven, that $10,000 would actually be replenished with the death benefit. So My Catholic Doctor could further grow the organization. So it's really an amazing strategy in a way. And here's another thing, getting back to this old term plan. This is most even insurance professionals like myself, like you, don't think about this. Term plan policy, if you don't know this, less than 2% of them ever pay out a death benefit. They're actuarial built not to pay out. Now, it doesn't mean they're not important. As Jim knows, most of you, I'm sure, don't know, but I actually had a claim where someone in their mid-30s was paying $50 a month. Heaven forbid he passed away, and he ended up leaving to his wife and 2 young children a $1.2 million death benefit. Okay, so, but that doesn't happen all the time, and a lot of times 98% of all term policies actually end up expiring before the person expires. But
Peter, I want to just interrupt if I could. But I want to make sure that we understand that it's not just a $10,000 cash value. It could be a $50,000, it could be $100,000, it could be $1 million cash value, because those things exist. Let's face it, and the people who buy this stuff tend to be like the people who buy very large premium contracts tend to be very wealthy as well. So there are some large amounts, and you could then have some impact. Of course, there are some rules with adjusted gross income and that sort of thing here in the U.S. But still, you could make significant changes to your tax based upon donating large policy. But there's more to it than just donating existing stuff, because you can do something else too, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, we could take out a new policy, you could get approved for it. We could change the ownership over to My Catholic Doctor, and then the donor could actually send in make the donations directly to My Catholic Doctor, and My Catholic Doctor could actually pay the policy. And that could be a term policy, or that could also be a cash value life insurance policy. So as the cash value in that policy grows, My Catholic Doctor would have access to it, but they'd still also have that leveraged death benefit. So those dollars, if you think about it, it's really pennies that buy dollars, and $1 that does a work of many dollars in a way.
Yeah. I think that's important. So we're donating something. We either have something to donate, we could buy something and donate it. You can buy. There's term plans, old plans. I mean, we see this on life settlement ads on television. Almost every day. That same sort of thing where people are converting a whole life contracts, or rather contracts, into cash, the same sort of strategy can be used in with a few changes here and there for charities too. And it's a real interesting strategy and a great way to help without, without causing yourself too much grief. And of course, getting rewarded for that with that tax receipt, I know, from the tax man. So not a bad idea at all.
And
Is there anything
one quick thing there, Jim, I just want to mention too. Now, this is important where with these old term plans, if they're getting close to expiring, this is really where you need to reach out to us, and you'll have my info at the end of this. And some term plans towards the end are convertible, and we can show you the options for those. Some are not convertible, and we may not have those options, but that's important where we sit down. We have a full process we take you through so that, we're just not going in trying to sell something. We don't do that. We like to say that we're the facilitator of the purchasing process, if there is a purchasing process.
Peter, a great point. This is not always something that the average insurance agent, financial advisor, has any familiarity with, and it's helpful to use somebody who does know what they're doing, has done something like this in the past. So you're not getting sort of nobody's practicing on you, and that's one of the great things about Nelson Insurance Advisors, is we have some experience at this and are able to help in a positive way and not leave clients hanging. But that's important. If you think you might have a situation like this, please be sure to get a hold of Peter. Now, there's another thing that you can do, and I think this is the real reason that got the whole discussion started, if I'm not mistaken. But I know when you first told me this, I couldn't believe it. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about this number 3 idea here.
Yeah, so there's something very special, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier. One of the fastest growing and largest Catholic fraternal insurance companies in this country, the Catholic Order of Foresters, they have this very unique fraternal benefit that I believe is the finest fraternal benefit in the United States. So let's just use a quick example of, let's just say you have $1 million policy. We'll say $1 million term, $1 million, doesn't matter type of policy, $1 million face amount. And heaven forbid you were to pass away. In that situation, if your family was the beneficiary, your family would get the full $1 million. But then on top of that, not coming out of the $1 million going to your family, but on top of that, I would walk in on behalf of the Catholic Order of Foresters and hand my Catholic doctor, if the person chose my Catholic doctor as that fraternal legacy rider beneficiary, a $50,000 check. That's tax-free. That's absolutely beautiful. And I've been in this business for 21 years. I'm independent, so we represent multiple companies. There's not a single other life insurance company in the United States, I can say that quite confidently, that does not have a feature like this. And I know when I was talking
there's not another one that does have like this. Nobody else has this, just to be clear.
There's no one that has this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, make sure. Yeah.
If I misspoke, I apologize. No,
okay. I was along very carefully.
I apologize, but
I got the point.
Yeah, no one else offers this. It is so unique. It's the minute I heard about this strategy, I was actually working for another Catholic fraternal at the time, and I just said, "Oh my gosh, the amount of good that we can do with this fraternal legacy rider." And right now, by the way, just to let everyone know, there are Catholic charities taking advantage of it. There's currently about over $86 million earmarked to Catholic charities across the country. $86 million right now. And I'm hoping in the near future, we're going to have, be adding some to my Catholic doctor as well. And just when a policy is taken out, by the way, and there's the fraternal legacy rider, there's an envelope. Here's one right here. This one's for $5,000 to actually a Catholic church here in East Tennessee. Here's another one for $6,000. Now, someone does have to pass away, in order for the Catholic charity to take advantage of that in the future. But let's face it, I'm pretty sure none of us have figured out how to be immortal. So
You know what, Peter, I just want to give some research on this. I have done some research in East Tennessee in particular, and with respect to the mortality rate, and it's still 100%. So you're right. Carry on.
So yeah, this is what we call the charitable bonus, is that if you're in a situation where you feel that you do need coverage for yourself, for your family, this is a wonderful way to also support My Catholic Doctor. Is let's help protect your family, provide the coverage that you need, and then you can also leave this amazing gift in the future to My Catholic Doctor. And I think it's a really great way to set an example of, this is a way that I'm going to give back to a charity that I have such high consideration for.
Peter, you said something earlier on how you and Anna want to make sure that your son understands what it's like to be charitable in life. And I know that you're a big donor to a lot of different charities across Tennessee. And I think you're right. It's an extraordinary example. But I just want to pick up on that first point here on this slide. And that is, prudent Americans are buying this stuff anyhow. But here's something to remember. Nobody needs life insurance. You don't need any, like you need car insurance or house insurance. You need that stuff because, well, mortgage companies want fire insurance and car insurance companies want car insurance. The law requires car insurance, but there's no such law on the life insurance side of the ledger, which about what you want. So if you want it, and you also want to be able to advantage something like My Catholic Doctor, which is an extraordinary organization doing extraordinary work in a very difficult world, and a very different world than perhaps I grew up in a long time ago now. But it's a great idea. So if you want that, you have this option through COF that can really make a big difference someday. Again, without any effort on your part, without any cost on your part, there is nothing to be done. Just do what you were going to do anyway, but just do it with Catholic Order of Foresters. What a great option. Again, a Catholic organization like MCD and a Catholic fraternal. What a great opportunity. It is something special, Peter, and I'm really glad you brought that up. But there's another one too, and I think we should remember this. There's another plan which you showed me the other day. I could scarcely believe how cool this is. And maybe for larger cases, it works pretty well. I know you showed me a big one on a 70-year-old. But talk about this, making one donation, like sort of a one-pay policy or some kind, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can do this multiple ways. We can structure it a couple different ways, but there's really two ways that we see it used most often. But in this example, here was a lady, she's 70 years old, not in great health, but decent health. And she had $100,000 sitting in a savings account, not making that much. And she was thinking about trying to maximize that money. And so what I said to her was, well, what if we took the money from your left pocket and we just moved it over to your right pocket? And what if we could instantly make that 100,000 look like 176,000? And in her example, she decided she was going to instead, and I'll get into, we can actually, My Catholic Doctor can own this, but she was going to maintain it. And she wanted to have access to the 100,000 she had. But by moving it from her left pocket to her right pocket, she instantly made the 100 look like 176,000. So she also wanted to leave some money to charity. So now she figured out a way to do it, because she instantly created $76,000 of leveraged death benefit. I said, do you know how brilliant you are? I said, do you realize that you could spend the first $76,000 while you were alive, and the minute that you died, the death benefit would actually replenish all that money you used while you're alive? I said, could you be any more brilliant? And at the same time, by the way, talking about My Catholic Doctor, if that same person had that $100,000, they could donate it to My Catholic Doctor, have the policy be owned by My Catholic Doctor. They could get a tax deduction. And once again, My Catholic Doctor could they'd instantly have that same leveraged death benefit. So 100 looks like 176,000. They'd have complete access from day one to that original $100,000, and they could spend the majority of that money while that donor was alive. And heaven forbid, when that donor was looking down, the death benefit would actually replenish most or all of that money that my Catholic doctor used while that donor was alive. And I ask people all the time, do you know anything else in the world that can do what I just described?
Peter, you mentioned $100,000. I mean, do you have to have $100,000 for that, or is there something another amount that works?
No, and that's, thank you for mentioning that. You don't need to have $100,000. I mean, actually, in the same strategy, I just showed one. It was about $1,500, and $1,500 for about a 40-year-old instantly bought a $5,000 face amount. So right then and there, you're 3 timesing the value of that 1,500. So once again, we could use smaller amounts, and that charity could literally spend all of that money just about, as long as the policy just stays in force with a couple dollars. The death benefit's going to replenish more, probably double what they started with to begin with. And by the way, I even did one of these myself. My own, I put in $20,000. This is a very unique strategy. This is not typical, by the way, but I was able to purchase one of these where I put in $20,000, and it instantly bought me $100,000 death benefit. And I have more than what I put in after year 1. So there it is. I figured out a way, just instantly move money from my left pocket over to my right pocket, and I 5 times that money without taking any risk whatsoever. So these are very simple strategies, but to be really honest, even for most of my career, until I was lucked out and being mentored by some of the top insurance professionals in the United States, I didn't even know that some of these strategies were available.
Peter, I think you're right. I think that's one of the things I know when we talk about these ideas with other advisors, a lot of them have no idea. They've been around for 20, 30, 40 years, have no idea about the way this product can work for you. And it's really what pays off in your case as being a specialist in this sort of product and this sort of strategy, these solutions. And again, for charities, it makes a big difference when you know what you're doing. And I take it, by the way, this last one here, making one donation for a life insurance policy, then this is not an age thing, generally speaking. I take it if you're an adult, this works. And pretty much almost any amount, I guess it would be, it's not going to happen for $50. That's not going to happen. But if you're trying to make a reasonable donation, this is going to work.
Right. But the nice part is it's a one-time donation. Boom, it's done. Most, if not all, of the cash is available would be available to my Catholic doctor instantly. And by the way, we even have some companies that will do a strategy like this. I know it's at least 90. I think I've once looked at one 95 years old. So, and because the company is receiving a single premium, the health is not as a big of a deal. I mean, it's still a factor in the whole deal, but at the same time, it's nothing we just did one where high blood pressure, cholesterol medication, diabetes, and it was a standard rating. No big deal. So, I mean, people think, oh, I'm not insurable. 99% or 90, it's high. We just had one actually where the guy was declined by 2 companies, and actually we just got him another company finally approved the policy. So it's not happening very often anymore where people are being declined for coverage. It's different than it was, and you know this, Jim, 5-10 years ago. As technology and the treatments, like organizations like My Catholic Doctor, like as the medical technology has gotten better, the life insurance industry has actually caught up too with that. So,
it's funny, Peter, as bad as COVID was, and it's a horrible thing. The interesting thing is that it forced a lot of hands and made a lot of things happen more quickly than might have happened otherwise. And I think you're right. Going back even 5 years, a lot of this stuff was just, dream. really, and it's changed. And so this one donation idea, I know that it has a real advantage for a charity like My Catholic Doctor too, because what it says is, nobody's chasing anybody for premiums. We don't have to worry about anything. We have the money. Everything is in place. It's a one deal, one donation, done deal. There's we're running around, no managing, no paying attention. Did we pay that premium? So if you're My Catholic Doctor, or if you're a donor who wants to make it easier for My Catholic Doctor, I just don't know a better way than this particular strategy to make that happen. Again, and this has the magic to it of both having instant money available to the charity, which of course they need for operations. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why a lot of charities don't even consider legacies, because, well, I don't want to redirect the money I've got going into operations for the long-term picture. But if indeed everybody realizes that they really need to do that, and if they don't, they can get themselves into a pretty substantial jackpot for no particularly good reason. So absolutely useful stuff. Peter, I wonder.
And by the way, real quick, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's why we see this option as so popular, because it's kind of like for the charity, they get to have their cake and eat it too, in a way. They have access to the cash now, but then also the long term. So they got short term and long term all built into one, and it's just an amazing strategy.
Yeah, it is something else. I know that my Canadian friends have just recently kind of walked into this particular deal, and it makes it very nice for them. But here, of course, we want to do that. Now, before we just finish up, Peter, and I think we're going to get out a little bit early, which I don't think anybody's upset about. Let's just review. I'll just take a second just to review, and if you want to add anything as we're going along, just quickly, those 3 ideas that we passed, or rather 4 ideas we passed along to you. Number 1 was, of course, just a simple thing about making My Catholic Doctor your beneficiary on a life insurance policy. It's the simplest way to leave a legacy to a charity, to a cause that means something substantial to you. You may have benefit already from My Catholic Doctor. It may be, you may be a medical professional, and this is something that's really close to your heart. That may be something, and it's a simple way of doing that. Kind of nothing magical, but just a simple way to know that you will be remembered with My Catholic Doctor. Anything to add to that, Peter?
Yeah, the minute that I heard about My Catholic Doctor, I just knew that it was it was a very special organization, being in the medical field and not being afraid to profess that they are Catholic. And so this is something very near and dear to my heart. I want to thank them once again for allowing us to do this. And please, every situation is different. I just want to mention that again. There is no cookie cutter, one size fits all strategy. There might be one of these 4 strategies that we just talked about. And by the way, these aren't the only strategies. We didn't even get into another one that I'll mention real quick, qualified charitable distributions. That's a whole different one that we could get into, but that's where we're going to sit down with you. We're going to take you through our process. And that process, by the way, was created over 40 years by my mentor, which is a very special process. And all we do is during that process, we ask you questions that allows you to clarify in your own mind what would be best for your situation. All we want to do is we want to ask you what you want.
Yeah.
Really,
Peter, let me just finish up if I can. Just the other 3 here I was just going to do it, and I
okay.
what you're doing. But so we're talking about donating a life insurance policy, whether an existing one or buying a new one. About dealing with an old term contract that may be going to lapse again, to check with Peter to make sure that it's something that we can use for that and it's appropriate in that situation. But that's something to donate, something that exists or something that you create that you qualify for. There's of course this whole idea, and I think that great idea from the Catholic Order of Foresters as well, the idea of the fraternal legacy rider. which allows you to that 5% extra. You buy a $2 million policy to pay off your mortgage and to put your kids through school and to keep your spouse going in the home, to leave them a home and not a mortgage, all that kind of stuff. And then if that's a $2 million contract, there's $100,000 that could go to your charity of choice. In this case, My Catholic Doctor. And those four are really something amazing. And as you pointed out earlier on, that these ideas make a legacy easier and most cost effective for you. These are ways where if you've got it on your heart to be charitable, if that's an important part of who you are, then this is a way you can do that. It's using something that a lot of people don't know, don't understand, get afraid of. I understand that. Peter understands that. But it's something that if you know how to make that stuff work for you, it can really be something special. Peter, you want to just finish it up here as we go into about 43 minutes here. Let's just finish it up then with your final.
I just want to open it up. Does anybody have any questions before we wrap up here?
So it's Kathleen. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to ask the total obvious question, which is that, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and only God can make something out of nothing. So with the fraternal legacy rider, where does that 5% of money come from?
No, that's a wonderful question, and thank you for asking that.
It's a loaves and fishes thing. What are we talking about, Peter?
Yeah.
Anyway, Gary, sorry.
So, and this is, I'm glad because I wanted to mention this and I didn't. So this was perfect, actually. So these fraternal organizations that we use, they're called what's called a 501c8. Now, My Catholic Doctor, of course, is a 501c3, right? 501c8s are fraternal organizations structured by the Internal Revenue Service. And because they're a 501c8, they do not have to pay federal income taxes. Okay. And they also have to give, so they can't keep the money. They're not for profit. They have to give the money back. So you ask, where does that 5% come from? Well, it's very simple. What the Catholic Order of Foresters believes in is that they want their Catholic members to actually have control of the money. Whereas there's so many different Catholic charitable organizations out there. There's other Catholic fraternal orders. They're all wonderful. But one of the big complaints that I've heard over the years is that they can't keep the money locally. And with this, you get to pick. For example, one of my clients, they love St. Joseph's Indian School, which is out in South Dakota. Well, St. Joseph's Indian School, she took out policies on 9 of her grandchildren, and every single one of those grandchildren, the fraternal legacy rider, and it was a large amount of money, by the way, is going to St. Joseph's Indian School. And she goes, I love this. And she was a longtime member of other Catholic fraternal, and God bless them, they do amazing work. But she never had the option to control where that money was going. And so we can do the same thing with My Catholic Doctor. Anybody takes out that policy, there's two beneficiary forms with the Catholic Order of Foresters life insurance application, the normal one, and then the fraternal legacy rider beneficiary. And that, by the way, that fraternal legacy beneficiary can only be a Catholic 501, an approved Catholic 501c3 organization. Okay, it just can't be, whatever charity. It must be. So, for example, some of my policies are going to St. Mary's Catholic Church down in Johnson City, Tennessee. You can split it up. That's even neater, by the way. You could have 50% going to your local parish. You could have 50% going to My Catholic Doctor. So there's great flexibility in this. And I absolutely just love that they offer this benefit.
I think, Peter, the point that you made is a good one. And that is this organization, you see, they're required to give money back. And here's a way they give it back. And exactly as you pointed out, this way, the control of who gets that money they have to give out goes to the people who are members, who buy their product. They're fraternal members. I think that's such a cool thing. And again, because it's a unique way of doing this, and as you say, we're not aware of anybody else doing it. It's a way that if you're buying anyway, if you're thinking about adding to your program, if you think you want to insure your, buy insurance for your kids, maybe not necessarily on them, but for them, and there's a difference. There's lots you can do. And this program, and certainly with Peter and the Nelson Insurance Advisors, you get a real good chance to make that happen. Peter, any last words before we go?
Yeah, just real quick follow-up on that too is, so, we, for a lot of this stuff, especially on working with in the Catholic community, we are using Catholic Order of Foresters, but we actually have other Catholic fraternal organizations that we use because we are independent. We're going to use the company that is going to really, once you tell us what you want to accomplish, we're really going to make sure we leverage your money as most effective and efficient manner possible. So maybe it is Catholic Order of Foresters. Maybe it's another one of our fraternal partners. Maybe it's a non-fraternal partner that we actually have. So we're going to, instead of building a cookie cutter home for you, we build custom homes. That's what we believe in. Every strategy is customized.
Perfect. And I think that's right. It's not one size fits all. It's not one company for everybody. But it can all be for my Catholic doctor. And I think that's really what we're after. So Kathleen, no money was invented in this process, but it has been provided, again, through the magic of life insurance. And really, that's a big part of that too. Any other questions from anyone? It'd be a surprise if there were, because nobody likes asking questions on a webinar. I do too many of these to think otherwise. But anyway, if there are no further questions, of course, you can call Peter when you're ready for this sort of discussion. Peter, that's Peter's cell phone, his mobile number. You can call him or text him at 610-413-7390, or you can email him directly at peter@nelsonplan.com, peter@nelsonplan.com. So without anything else, if there's nothing else, Peter, thank you for what you've done today for this program. Thank you, of course, to my Catholic doctor for the opportunity to share some great ideas that we hope can help build the organization and create legacies from some of the folks on this call and those who will be listening and watching in later on. Peter,